Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandy. Welcome, everybody. So as I was introduced, my name is Evie Vancisin, and I'll be here today talking to you about advocacy through storytelling. In this presentation, we'll kind of go over different kinds of advocacy, as well as how you can use your own personal story to make your advocacy more effective. So as Sandy said, my name is Evie Vancisin. I'm 18 years old and I'm a rare disease patient. I have a rare bleeding disorder and a rare autoinflammatory condition. The names are on the screen if you really are interested. But you'll notice I don't have maple syrup urine disease. So you're probably wondering why I'm here talking to you guys. And that's because I'm a young adult rare representative with the Every Life Foundation. As a young adult rare representative, or YAR as they call us, we get public speaking training, and after we complete that, we get put into a public speaking bank. So we'll be contacted for doing different presentations all over. I've talked to a lot of medical students, that's why I'm here today. So I have a lot of advocacy experience. I work with a lot of nonprofits that are focused on advocacy. I've been working in federal legislation advocacy for about 3 years now. So yeah, we'll kind of get going here. So I have a question for you guys, which is how can you advocate through telling your story? And this is kind of the question we're going to help you answer through my presentation. We're kind of going to go through what kinds of advocacy are interesting to you. I'm focusing mainly on legislative advocacy because that's the area I have the most expertise in. How do you want to tell your story? And then knowing your audience, which is a really important part of advocacy. But before we get into that, I do have a question for you guys, which is why do we care about advocacy as rare disease patients? Does anybody have any thoughts? Okay, that's okay. That's why we're here, so we can kind of learn more. Advocacy is a really important part of the rare disease community because a lot of the times we're the only people who are experts on our diseases, right? So you'll run into a doctor and they'll never have really heard of maple syrup urine disease before. So you'll be telling them hey, this is what it is, here's how it affects me. That's really an integral part of advocacy. And in terms of legislative advocacy, you're oftentimes gonna go to your legislator's office, let's say. It's your senator, cool. And they'll be like, what are you here for today? And you'll tell them, I have this policy issue that I care about, and here's my story. And oftentimes, you'll be speaking to a legislative aide, and they're actually the ones who do a lot of the policy work, not necessarily the legislator. And they'll be like, wow, I've never heard of this before. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. I'll pass it on to the legislature. And also, because you told your story to these people that you're meeting with, they care more. This is a really big point of connection. They care more, they listen more, they remember more. You're kind of helping them remember what it is you're saying, and you're showing them how it affects their constituents, right? So that's kind of the why behind what we're doing. So we have step one here, which is kind of choose what area of advocacy appeals to you. There's a lot of different kinds of advocacy. You can do more awareness raising based, you can do educational, you can also do teaching. If you have advocacy experience, kind of what I'm doing right now, I'm here talking to you guys about how to become advocates. That's also a really great way to get involved with advocacy. But if you're going to do legislative, you kind of have 3 different areas of government that you can advocate for. You have federal, state, and then local. Obviously, your state and your county probably will be different, but we're in Cuyahoga County right now. Local government is mostly your mayor, your city council members, or whatever equivalent you have to that, and also your county officials. State, everybody has a representative in their state Senate and also state House of Representatives. If you don't know who that is, every state government has an interactive map on their website that will kind of give you more information. And then federal is your state's 2 senators, and then your congressional district's representative. Again, if you don't know who that is, the federal government also has an interactive map. You can go where you live and you're like, oh yeah, that's my congressman, cool. So now we'll move on to step 2, which is figuring out how to tell your story. And this is the most important thing I'm going to tell you in this entire presentation, which is that your personal story is what makes for effective advocacy. You don't have to have a PhD in communications to be a good advocate. What you need to have is the ability to be vulnerable when you're talking to people, and the ability to be true to yourself and what your story has done for your life. That is what makes a good advocate. When you're kind of figuring this out, I would tell you to focus on 3 things, which is, like I said, being authentic, connecting your story to policy or whatever other issue you're talking about in that moment, so they have an ability to see this issue actually impacts real people. And also being short and sweet. So a lot of the times when you're talking to legislators specifically, you don't have a lot of time. So you have to be able to be clear, concise, and get the point across in a very short amount of time, sometimes as short as like 2 to 3 minutes. So after you figure this out, you will figure out how you really want to be an advocate through what means. Now again, if you're doing other types of advocacy, if you're doing awareness raising, social media is a great tool. If you're doing educational advocacy, you'll probably be doing a lot of presentations to different groups of people. And if you're doing educational stuff, you'll also be doing a lot of presentations, again, like I'm doing now. So if you're doing legislative, there's kind of 3 different main ways that you're gonna interact with your legislators. The first is in-person meetings or meetings through Zoom. The second is phone calls. You can call any legislator and you'll either talk to like a legislative aide or you'll leave a voicemail. If you're calling like your senator in DC, be warned their voicemails do have like a 45-second to 60-second cutoff. I didn't know that, so that's why it's so important to be able to be concise with what you're saying. I also do have a fun fact about phone calls, which is that when you call a legislator, their office logs that call as representing 100 different constituents. So your phone call has a really big impact that you might not feel, but it really does make a difference. You also have email and mail. You can email your legislators. You can also send them letters in the mail. There's guides on how to like format the address on like the government websites. So this is step 3.5. Because it's kind of a subsection of the previous step, which is national and statewide organizations. So if you're kind of lost, if you want more guidance, or you're kind of wanting more support, you can absolutely connect with statewide and national organizations. I've listed 3 of them here for you guys. These are good starting points. The first option is the Everyday Foundation, which is the organization that I'm affiliated with. They have a lot of great programming. I talked about the YAR program a little bit. If you're 16 to 30, you are eligible to be involved and have access to all of their programming. If you are 10 to 18 years old, or you have a 10 to 18-year-old child, you guys are eligible to participate in Youth and Teen Advocacy Day, which just happened a few weeks ago. Children and their caregivers and parents will meet via Zoom with their legislators' offices, and they'll be able to advocate for different issues. It's a really great program, especially if you want to get involved in advocacy. I highly recommend doing it. And also, the Everyday Foundation do a lot of like educational sessions. There's something called the Rare Disease Legislative Advocates, which they host monthly webinars about like what's going on in Congress and like how does that impact the rare disease population, which is really helpful, especially if you're kind of lost and you don't really know where to start. Also, all these organizations have email lists that you can sign up for. The MSUD Family Support Group has an email list, Everyday Foundation, NORD. I highly recommend signing up for those emails. So yeah. So step 4 is to practice telling your story. Practice makes perfect, as they say, and especially as like rare disease patients, oftentimes our stories are long and complicated and emotional for us, so it really helps to kind of like plan out mentally. Even if you're not like writing anything down yet, just be like, okay, I want to talk about the symptoms I had, or the diagnostic process, or the time I was hospitalized. Just kind of like mentally map that out. That really helps. You can also like write out a script if you want, and if that works, you can also do bullet points that can help kind of guide you when you're talking. Don't wing it, because I've done that before. Listen to me now and not me in the past. Winging it is really stressful, and you're gonna not sound like you know what you're talking about because you're just kind of making it up as you go. So it's really helpful to have like a second pair of eyes on whatever it is you're talking about. Okay, we'll go to the next step, which is step 5, knowing your audience. So this step is really important for all kinds of advocacy. If you're doing an educational presentation, who are you talking to? Are you talking to high schoolers? Are you talking to people who have a PhD in your disease's pathway? Kind of depending on who you're actually talking to, you'll kind of tailor the actual presentation you give. It's also really important to kind of think about your goals when you're talking to somebody, like, what do I want the audience to come away with? As you're like working on your presentation, keep that in mind. That's a really good way to make your presentations and your speaking engagements, whatever it may be, more effective. If you're talking to a legislator, your goal is pretty much the same. I want them to either support or not support this piece of legislation. But before you meet with them, I'd highly recommend looking into their committee assignments, because every legislator has a committee that they work on. So you could say, okay, my senator is on the health committee, and this issue that I'm bringing up is related to health. It kind of helps you structure what you're going to say. Same for what legislation they've worked on in the past. A lot of legislators will like sponsor bills or be like big co-sponsors for bills. I highly recommend looking at that and being like, okay, this senator co-sponsored a bill that really made an impact on me or my community. And when you're talking to them, you can mention that and be like, I really appreciate so-and-so's dedication to this cause. It impacted me in this way. And that's also like a way to tell the person you're talking to that you know what you're talking about. You can also look at their values. That's also like another connection point that makes them listen to you and take you more seriously. If you know the legislative aide you're going to be talking to, you can also look them up online. You can see like what different part they're in, if they're like a healthcare aide or if they're like the chief healthcare officer. Just gives you a little bit more information that's helpful to know. Okay, so step 6 is telling your story. So once you've found whatever part of advocacy speaks to you, figured out kind of how you want to tell your story, and then found an issue or connected with an organization, and you've practiced a little bit, you're ready to advocate. And this is the second most important thing I could tell you in this presentation, which is that you can't do it wrong. Okay, it's your story. You guys are the experts because you were there. Nobody else can tell your story but you. So that's what I'll kind of leave you with. I do have an example of what I told legislators 2 weeks ago, but I don't think we have time for that. So it's your guys' turn now. On the screen, I have my phone number and my email. If you ever have any questions or need help or connection to resources, feel free to email me, call me. I will do my best to help you. But yeah, so now it's your guys' turn. We have a little bit of time, for questions or any comments. Also, if any of you guys have participated in advocacy, I'd love to hear.
So any of you who come